The stimulus hangs in the balance as the president leaves Washington for the holidays. A little good news, COVID cases in the Midwest starting to finally decline. And what to stream on Christmas Day? Here's what you need to know. Good morning, this is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Thursday, December 24th. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Carlo, it's Christmas Eve. I can't believe it.
It is. It is also the last podcast of this exhausting, excruciating year. But yeah, Christmas right around the corner here now. By the way, our Love Hate 8 podcast, we recorded it. We're going to drop that a little later on today. So if you're looking for something while you're maybe wrapping presents tonight, that's a good option. There's no news in there, so don't feel like you have to listen to it if you want to get your news. It's fully your Love Hate 8 submissions. But we had a nice time yesterday recording it.
It's full fluff, no news, but a lot of fun.
Exactly.
All right, but let's get to the news here. President Trump has now left Washington for Mar-a-Lago, where he's going to be spending the holidays after throwing D.C. into chaos. The president broke with Senate Republicans and vetoed the annual defense bill, setting up the first veto override of his presidency next week. More importantly, no one, not Democrats, not Republicans, not even the White House, seems to know what's happening with the stimulus bill. So President Trump has not signed it after making those 11th hour demands that the $600 checks be upped to $2,000. If the bill isn't signed by Monday, the government's going to shut down. Millions of Americans and countless businesses that were counting on financial aid are now going to be left wondering what is going to happen.
What is going to happen? I wish I knew. I have no idea. This is like beyond the beyond here. Are you familiar with the John Mulaney, his stand-up? He does this the horse is loose in the hospital bit. It's so funny. I got to send it to you if you haven't seen it. But it's sort of it's just I won't even try and do it justice. But Google horse in the hospital John Mulaney and watch. It's very funny. It just reminded me of what's happening right now. Look, the president is having a temper tantrum that is having real repercussions. I don't know how else to say it. Also, Jill, on his way to Mar-a-Lago, he issued another wave of pardons last night, granting clemency to Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, and Charles Kushner, who, of course, is Jared Kushner's father. That one, I think, was pretty expected, among some 24 other people. So every significant defendant in the Mueller investigation who did not cooperate has now been pardoned. President Trump, I think, could have gone out by really sticking it to the establishment by pardoning people, some whistleblowers maybe, some people like Reality Winner, Assange, Snowden, and I think I would have supported that. But instead, he's just pardoning war criminals, personal cronies, and corrupt politicians. So this guy was all about draining the swamp. I mean, what are you supposed to say to that?
Yesterday we also talked about him pardoning 4 former guards for Blackwater. They were accused of massacring Iraqi civilians in 2007. There's been a lot of backlash, particularly from Iraqis, many of whom were witnesses to the massacre and actually came to the U.S. to testify about it. One of them said, quote, "Today we were surprised that the American president issued a decision to pardon these criminals, murderers, and thugs. I'm really shocked. The American judiciary is fair and equitable. I had never imagined that Trump or any other politician would affect American justice." Carlo, I think that these pardons, damage just our image around the world,
Sure.
including in Iraq. I think it's hard for the U.S. to kind of hold this moral high ground.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I snickered a little when you read that quote. The American judiciary is fair and equitable. That it is absolutely not. Neither of those things. And it never has been. But yeah, I mean, look, that massacre. By the way, they weren't accused; they were convicted. They first-degree murder, I believe, including killing children in that massacre. So Again, I think politically, I guess it's I don't really know what to make of it. I really don't. I don't have any answers today. Like I don't know who is that the Blackwater pardons. Who is for that? I don't really get it. I sort of understand him pardoning Roger Stone and Manafort because they didn't squeal, right? So that's sort of what happens. And if you don't squeal, the boss pardons you. I get that. I even get why he pardoned Charles Kushner, who is Jared Kushner's father. Because Kushner was prosecuted by Chris Christie back, 10, 15 years ago. So that one I even understand. But the Blackwater one in particular just doesn't make any sense, nor do the ones of Duncan Hunter and Chris Collins, the two congressmen who were convicted of corruption charges. Like, who is that helping
They were
other
early
than them?
supporters they were early Trump
Yeah.
supporters. I guess that's the only rationale.
It's all about loyalty. That's what it is. It's all about loyalty, right?
Meanwhile, the political back and forth over the stimulus comes really at this breaking point here. Another 800,000 Americans joined the ranks of the unemployed last week. And if the stimulus bill is not signed into law soon, federal unemployment benefits expire in a week, leaving 12 million people without any income. Consumer spending dropped in November for the first time since the pandemic started. Consumer confidence is at a 4-month low. And even the resilient housing market is faltering a bit. New home sales fell to a 5-month low, which was a bit surprising.
Yeah, I think just what you said. I mean, we're not in good shape here, folks. He has got to sign this friggin' bill. I don't know what else to say. I hope that there's somebody, Ivanka maybe, who is in his ear being like, you can't just let this simmer on on your desk here. First of all, we can't let the government shut down, for the love of all is holy. Like that would be really the marking of like a failed society if we have a government shutdown here in the middle of all this. But more importantly than that, we have to get this money to people. I mean, look, this bill's not perfect. You can argue about the direct payments and all of the other stuff and all of the all of the other sort of like giveaways that are wrapped into this this bill. Actually, you know what? One thing that I do want to mention, which I think we in the media have not done a very good job of explaining, because there's a lot of stuff going around online about people being like, look at this bill. There's money in there for Israel, or there's money in there for Tibet or whatever. Like that's not exactly the case, right? The stimulus bill was pretty much attached to the regular government spending bill, just logistically, like as a way to sort of like get them done at the same time. But what ended up happening with that, and again, because Congress is not particularly good at messaging on either side, what ended up happening is that is people read through this 5,000-page bill and they take out these parts that are part of the normal spending bill, which again, you can disagree with, fine. But it's not that money is coming as part of the stimulus. Does that make sense?
I'm glad you mentioned this because, in circles that I follow, and I follow a lot of anti-Semitism tracking blogs and websites.
Right.
And there was a lot of concern about Alyssa Milano. I can't even believe I'm saying this, but, some of these celebrities have become social commentators and political commentators because of social media. And so she wrote a tweet, something like, $500 million for Israel, and, we can't even get unemployment or something like that, at the expense of whatever. And it's not like an either or.
Exactly.
And it actually is that's a dangerous, look, if I don't know everything here, but I don't pretend to or get on my high horse and tweet about things I don't know about. And that's dangerous because that's not actually the situation. And you're basically, can you imagine if you're somebody who's unemployed and you're waiting for stimulus money and you think, they're giving it, that Congress is giving Israel money over you, or you're a restaurant owner who's not getting money in this bill and you're thinking that it's not correct. Included was also tons of aid, by the way, more aid than that for many other countries. And it's like, we can debate if we should be giving money to certain countries and whatnot.
It's a separate thing.
It's totally separate. So to your point, the messaging on this was horrible. And of course it is being spun in a way that's not really accurate.
Yeah. I mean, this is a longer conversation just about how important it is for the media really to sort of do their job, do our jobs here, right? And explaining this to people. because you're right, a tweet from a celebrity that misunderstood something could take on a life of its own, as we've seen a million times.
Meanwhile, a winter storm that's creating a white Christmas for parts of the upper Midwest is going to turn into a significant rain event for the East Coast later today into Christmas Day. Torrential rain and high winds are in the forecast for much of the Northeast.
And combine that, Jill, with the warmer temperatures that we're getting here, and also the snow. I don't know if there's snow out still on the ground out on Long Island where you are, but because it's been so cold, there's still a significant amount of snow on the ground in the city. So that's going to pose this flooding risk, right? Because that's going to melt. You're going to have all this other rain. So just be on the lookout for sort of coastal flooding on the highways from the mid-Atlantic up to New England if you're sort of in the I-95 corridor. Bottom line, whatever you got to do today to prep for Christmas, if you got to go out and get food shopping, last-minute gifts, try and get it done on the early side. You don't want to be out there later today. We're going to have like 40, 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts. It's not going to be good.
Latest on the virus now.
And no snow.
Sorry. Now, listen, we'll see what happens, right? The weather, we'll see. Weather's crazy.
Who knows? Yeah.
Okay. The latest on the virus, more areas of Britain going into a strict lockdown because of a more infectious variant of the coronavirus that's sweeping through the country. Another mutated strain in South Africa is also being studied. Both appear to be more infectious, but not necessarily deadlier. In the U.S., the good news first, cases and hospitalizations are finally starting to significantly decline in the Midwest. The Northeast appears to be plateauing, while the outbreaks in the South and the West are still rising sharply. December has now overtaken April as the deadliest month yet. The country heads into Christmas with about 3,400 people dying every single day from this virus.
You can't forget about these numbers, even though we sort of become numb to them. It's a little bit interesting what's happening because it's, a couple of weeks ago we were talking about this as sort of like a full-blown outbreak basically everywhere in the country, and it's becoming much more regionalized now, for better or worse. I guess it is for better because theoretically, at least, that means that resources that were in places like the Midwest could potentially be sent to places like the South and the Southwest, which are really doing poorly. So that could be good, at least. Meanwhile, Jill, the early coronavirus vaccine distribution in the United States is going slower than expected. I think you and I may have expected this, but they had said that they wanted to deliver 20 million doses by the end of this month. So far, just over 1 million vaccine shots have been given with a week to go. The CDC data is probably undercounting vaccinations by a little bit because it lags a little, and the Moderna vaccine is now finally rolling out. So that process is gonna start to smooth out in the weeks ahead, but it's been a slow start. That is for sure. So just where we stand now. The United States has secured 200 million doses from Moderna, 200 million from Pfizer after getting that extra 100 million yesterday, 100 million from Johnson & Johnson, which is yet to be approved, 300 million from AstraZeneca, which has not yet been approved, 100 million from Novavax, and 100 million from Sanofi GlaxoSmithKline. So there's a lot of vaccine coming, assuming that they get approved. But it is true that just it's been sort of slow going here, and I don't think it's anyone's fault necessarily. I think it's just we've talked about this, right? There's all of these logistical hurdles. When you have something this big, this sort of mass vaccination event, there's going to be issues here and there. But we really got to start ramping this up now, I think.
The one piece of good news, Governor Cuomo tweeted yesterday, the same way that the Pfizer vaccine, there was extra doses. They each vial was supposed to have have enough for 5 vaccinations, but it actually had enough for 6. The Moderna as well. Each vial is supposed to have enough for 10 vaccinations, and it appears they're able to squeak out an 11th. So that's just a little piece of good news.
We'll take it, right?
When you mention those numbers, again, I think it's misleading, right? It's 200 million Pfizer doses. That's 100 million people.
Yes.
That is not 200 million people. Just something to note. Not that there's ever a good time for a mutant strain of the coronavirus to emerge, but it's a particularly bad time right now for Britain. The Brexit transition period ends on New Year's Day with or without a UK-EU trade deal that's still being negotiated. Many anti-Brexiters have been warning that it's going to result in huge logjams at the border as goods are now going to have to go through customs.
And if you've been watching any overseas news this week, you will have seen that prediction did indeed come true. Ironically, not because of Brexit, but because France had closed its ports for 48 hours because of this mutated strain of the coronavirus. Again, the news this year is you cannot even make it up. It's just too much. But anyway, truck drivers are now able to cross the English Channel into the continent, but they have to test negative first. And there's this huge gridlock that's leading to a lot of missed deliveries. We talked about how we're having a lot of missed deliveries here. It's going to be even worse in Europe. And not to mention missed holidays for drivers. I don't know if you've seen any of these videos of these trucks lined up at these ports. In Britain, but these guys have been there now for days, and they have families too that they're going to miss. It is a serious mess, and we're going to hear a lot more about this in the coming weeks because of the combination of Brexit and the virus.
Finally, Christmas Day, usually one of the biggest movie-going days of the year. With many theaters still closed, two big Christmas movies are foregoing their theatrical releases and premiering directly on streaming. Wonder Woman 1984 on HBO Max, and then Pixar's Soul on Disney Plus. They're both family-friendly flicks. They're included for free if you're a subscriber to those services. If you want something a little bit more grown up, the new George Clooney sci-fi drama Midnight Sky just dropped on Netflix.
I kind of want to see that, although the reviews are not good. What are you going to watch tomorrow? As a Jew on Christmas, isn't it's typically your duty to eat Chinese food and watch movies, right?
Yes, that is basically our one responsibility. I don't know. I guess we're going to watch something, I think, family friendly. Carlo, I do need to call you out because I did not call you out yesterday on this because I misinterpreted what you said. So you've never seen Coming to America?
I know. Haven't we had this? Haven't you teased me about this in the past?
If we have, I've blocked it out.
It's a major cultural blind spot that I promised you in the past that I will get it fixed. Maybe I can get it fixed over Christmas because you're right. It's ridiculous. I feel like I've seen it because
I've to watch over Christmas.
I know, and I feel like I've seen it because I've seen so many clips and I know the lines from it. But you're right. That is a good Christmas watch actually. Maybe that's what we'll do tomorrow. But you guys should watch this movie Soul on Pixar. It's getting really good rave reviews, actually.
All right. I think that we've got a plan. We're going to watch, of course, we're going to be watching the Ohio State game on New Year's Day. There's also been a ton of good basketball, college basketball. Mm-hmm. So we have some sports.
All right, Joel.
Okay,
well,
guys,
look, this is it. This is it for us.
I know.
This is the longest we're going to go dark.
Yeah, we're going to be back January 4th. So we're going to be off for next week. We'll be off Christmas Day, obviously, and we'll be off for next week. But everyone have a really great holiday. Have a wonderful, happy new year. And, here's to better things in 2021.
Yeah, cheers to that, Jill. And just for everybody who's facing loss or heartache or anxiety or loneliness this holiday season, you're not alone. Hang in there. Remember our mantras. Every day that you don't get the coronavirus is a day you don't spread the coronavirus, is a good day. And when you're going through hell, keep going. Those are the two mantras for the end of the year. There are better days ahead, and we'll be there right with you.
And not to be corny, Carlo and I mentioned this on our Love, Hate, Hate special podcast, but there's probably a lot of people who are not going to listen to that all the way through. But we just want to thank everybody for listening, because one of the things that I know I am personally thankful for this year is this podcast. And it has kept me sane. I always enjoy chatting with Carlo and our whole team here, Michelle, Anna, Brian, Ron, Jake, everyone who gets up early with us to listen to us kind of talk about the news, and all the listeners out there. We really appreciate it. It's like a second family for real, just hearing from everybody. And thanks for letting us into your home or wherever you're listening.
Into your ear pods. Yes. I couldn't have said it better myself, Jill. Absolutely.
All right, guys. Have a great holiday. That's what you need to know for Thursday, December 24th.
See you on the other side.